What's happening, Raider Nation? It's Soto here. Raiders against the world, talking about the team that the world loves to hate, the Las Vegas Raiders. All right, it was a wild week, man. A lot of ups and downs. We had our last game on Sunday, and after that, it just got real funky. Okay, after the game, most of the people were like, "Yo, man, what's gonna happen with Antonio Pierce? He's the head coach. He didn't do very well. Yeah, he wasn't given much. What's going on here? Who knows?" Okay, here's my take. Yes, he was given a bad situation. Yes, his GM didn't address the major needs the team had, which was quarterback. Yes, the team was riddled with injuries. Yes, the offensive coordinator was absolutely dreadful in Luke Getzey, and they had to get him out of there with like 2 months into the season. But let's slow down for a second here. I get all that. I understand. And honestly, I don't know that necessarily this decision was made solely on wins and losses. Okay? I think going into the season, Mark Davis knew, hey, AP, he's a master motivator. He knows how to connect with these players. He comes in to the position knowing how to do that. He showed he knew how to do that last season as interim head coach. He's going to learn. He needs to get better. He needs to learn on the job. All right. Let's see him learn. Let's see him get better. I don't know that we saw that, man. There's a crazy stat. In the last 2 minutes of the first half and the last 2 minutes of the game in the fourth quarter, the Raiders were outscored something outrageous like 70-40. And mind you, I counted at least 3 touchdowns that were in like complete garbage time with the Raiders down more than 2 scores, so those touchdowns meant nothing. It would have been a whole lot worse. But man, that's directly tied to bad decisions made, and game time decisions, time management decisions made by the head coach. Ultimately, here's the deal. AP didn't show the improvement that he needed to show in order to stick around, in order to show promise that the gap between him and Andy Reid and Sean Payton and Jim Harbaugh, that huge gap between coaching ability, was going to get shorter and going to get smaller. Fine. Most people thought that he was going to get fired right after the game. Hey, after the game, AP went up to the podium. He made his post-game speech. It looked like, he was a dead man walking. Here comes Monday, and he's all smiles. He's got a sick little, quarter zip hoodie, Raiders freaking starter, windbreaker, and he's all smiles talking about the future, and everything is hunky-dory on Monday. Tuesday, wrong. It just seemed like Mark Davis wanted to make sure he talked to Tom Brady, who was working on Sunday, right? So talk to him on Monday, figure everything out, and then they pulled the whole gladiator on him. Mark Davis played the gladiator. He went in, thumbs down. It was like Mark Davis was Caesar, and Tom Brady was his first lieutenant, and they just looked at Antonio Pierce and gave him the thumbs down. So that was it. Antonio Pierce out. People were wondering what's going to happen with Tom Telesco. All right. He did a pretty good job in the draft. He drafted the only rookie All-Pro, right, in Brock Bowers. Great pick. Probably one of the top 2-3 players in the draft. He showed a lot of promise. He's already the best tight end in the league. Okay? And that's with, Aiden O'Connell, Gardner Minshew, and Desmond Ridder, the triple threat of mediocre quarterbacks throwing to him, and he still put up those type of numbers. And it wasn't like he was the only person getting the ball either, because his teammate Jacoby Myers had a 1,000-yard season as well. So I understand if you can discount Brock Bowers' season if he was the only guy catching passes, but you have 2 1,000-yard receivers on the same team. Yeah, man, this guy's special. So moving into Wednesday, Telesco looks fine, right? He had the draft. He got Christian Wilkins. Unfortunately, he got hurt. He got a couple signings here and there. Okay, he saved a lot of cap space, and you could carry over some cap space over year to year. But let's take a deeper look at this. Although I do like, especially the top four picks, the first four picks, because they all started this year and they all played well. You have to take a look at it a little bit deeper because the one thing Telesco needed to get in last year's draft was a quarterback, and he didn't get it. So yeah, it's great that you got Brock Bowers, but you didn't get what you needed. And this may be a hot take, but even an average to slightly above average quarterback will impact an offense more than a generational tight end talent. It's just the way of the world. The quarterback has the ball in his hands every single play. So look, I'm not saying that Tlistle did a bad job, but if you take a look at everything from some perspective, it doesn't look like he was a slam dunk to stick around either. Which is why it was kind of weird that AP got let go on Tuesday and then nothing happened on Wednesday. Everything was fine. But you take a look back, he did have a ton of cap space that was unused. He signed a couple of veteran offensive linemen for depth that we actually needed to play, and they were awful. Cody Whitehair and Andrews Pete, those guys were terrible. We had all that cap space, and you couldn't fortify the offensive line. Running game was bad. You let Josh Jacobs walk, and you had a ton of cap space just sitting there. And you just had an awful run game. These things didn't make sense. You have AP coming in here. He's pounding the table. We want to run the ball. We want to be a physical running team. And you don't fortify the offensive line, and you don't fortify the running back position. Two huge whiffs right there. So there's three whiffs already. Whiff number one, you didn't draft a quarterback. Whiff number two, you didn't fortify the offensive line. Whiff number three, you left your former rushing champion running back leave when you had cap space to sign him. And here's the last whiff. Your answer to the quarterback problem on this team was Gardner Minshew. Now look, when they signed him, I'm like, okay, let me take a look at this guy's stats. Let me take a look at some of this guy's tape. He's not terrible, okay? But he's also not a franchise quarterback either. There's a reason why he's bounced around from team to team to team and never been the starter. Well, he was starter with us, and he was absolutely dreadful. Now, I understand that Luke Getsy was the offensive coordinator, and he's just not any good. But the issue that we're having here is, whether it was Luke Getsy, whether it was the firm of Turner and Turner, Minshew was awful. Absolutely dreadful. And that does fall on Telesco because he was tasked with fixing the quarterback position. So look, is it a surprise that he was fired on Thursday? It wasn't a surprise that he was fired. I was surprised that it happened on Thursday. I thought it would have happened on Tuesday when AP was fired. But for whatever reason, he gets fired on a Thursday. And here's the reason why. Ben Johnson, who's the belle of the ball, right? Ben Johnson is the guy that everybody wants. He's the guy that everybody's looking for. The head coaching candidate, tip-top, number one option, right? Well, he said he wouldn't take any interviews with any teams that he wouldn't sign with, okay? Well, it just so happens that he had a meeting with the Raiders on Friday. Like I said before, Telesco's being fired, I don't believe, was performance-based. Now, he had one home run that he did, which was Brock Bowers. And it's a lot of good picks as well. Jackson Powers Johnson was good. You also had, Delmar, DJ Glaze. You had DeCam Richardson, who played really well. Yeah, great pickups, right? I love the Wilkins pickup, right? But what we're looking at here is you're talking about all these decisions that needed to be made, okay? All these decisions that needed to be made. What's going to happen with quarterback? Who are we drafting? How are we solidifying the offensive line? What are we doing at running back? What are we doing for depth? You had all these issues and all these decisions to make, and you hit a home run with one. We have a lot of decisions to make this offseason. Let's say Telesco stayed. He was going to be a part of picking a head coach, finding a quarterback, solidifying running back, solidifying offensive line, finding a staff. We can't whiff on any of these picks. We can't whiff on any of these decisions. Now, I'm not saying we have to hit a home run with every single one, but we can't whiff on any of these. These decisions are far too important for the Raider franchise for them to be whiffs. And for him to have a home run, let's say a couple of solid doubles and a bunch of strikeouts, man, it's just, I'll just say it was Telesco's tenure wasn't as spotless as some people might make it out to be. So, you combine that with the fact that Ben Johnson has said he wants to bring his own GM with him to make sure that everyone's on the same page and everyone speaks the same language and everyone knows what everyone's talking about. So, blip, 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 when Joe Pesci feels like, hey, I'm getting made, I'm going into a meeting, and bang, right in the back of the head, gone. Look, there's a lot of coaching candidates out there, right? A lot of good ones. There's Vrabel, and there's Aaron Glenn and Brian Flores, and there's my three favorite, right? My three favorite are Ben Johnson and Liam Cohen from the offensive coordinator from Tampa Bay, and I mean Pete Carroll. I love Pete Carroll. I think Pete Carroll would come in the same guise as AP. He connects with the players. He's a player-friendly coach, but he has everything locked up. He has everything tightened up, right? Because Pete Carroll can go in to the AFC West and say, oh, Andy Reid, I've beaten you before many times. Oh, yeah, Sean Payton, I've beaten your ass before too, many times. Oh, Jim Harbaugh, yeah, man, I've beaten you too, a ton of times. So look, we won't be at a coaching disadvantage with Pete Carroll, for sure. Now, the Ben Johnson and Liam Combs in the world, Liam Cohen, I flipped it, Liam Cohens of the world, we don't know if they're going to be good head coaches. But something tells me with the way that the Detroit offense just is unstoppable. They are the most complete offense in the entire NFL in quite some time. You don't get that way by being a bad coach. Now, Liam Cohen, he's a McVay dude. And McVay offensive assistants just seem to be just get spit out all over the NFL, and they are winning a lot of games. Smart guy. He's been offensive coordinator in college, offensive coordinator in the NFL. Look, you got Baker Mayfield running around there, right? You got injuries all up and down the Tampa Bay offensive line. You missed Mike Evans for 5 games. You missed your number 2 receiver for almost the entire season. You missed your number 1 tight end for a bunch of games. Yeah, and you're still number 4 in the NFL in scoring. That seems like a pretty damn good coach to me. So I'm cool with any one of those, right? So look, Ben Johnson had his meeting on Friday, okay? And he went in there and it was reported, okay? I think Diana Rossini was the first to report that the feeling around the NFL is Ben Johnson would not have taken that meeting if not for Tom Brady. Now, that doesn't mean to say he was only taking that meeting because Tom Brady was there. I'm thinking he has the Raiders as an option because of Tom Brady and because of what Tom Brady can do for the organization. For all intents and purposes, in all accounts, the meeting went well today, on Friday, or yesterday, I guess. And there's going to be a lot more. Raiders have already asked permission to talk to Aaron Glenn, and I believe they're going to ask permission to speak with Brian Flores, and they don't need to ask permission for Vrabel or Pete Carroll, and I believe they're going to ask permission to speak to Liam Cohen. That's a good amount of candidates. Personally, if it's not the super experienced Pete Carroll coming in, I would like it to be an offensive coach, an offensive mind who can also take over the offense and the play calling, just to have it be a little bit more continuity, right? Hell, John Gruden is floating around there. I don't know how that would work with the fact that he's still getting paid from his old contract and then he would have a new contract. Would they just kind of like reinstitute the old contract? I don't know. Here's the deal, though. I'm not 100% sure that Mark Davis wants to give all that power to John Gruden again, because a lot of his drafting and a lot of his personnel decisions weren't that great. And the Raiders won despite that. It's a tough one. It's a tough one. But ultimately, if it's any of those three, the big three, Ben Johnson, Liam Cohen, or Pete Carroll, I will be absolutely ecstatic. Because we're going to be able to get a top flight defensive coordinator, because they want to work with a good offense, right? And these are, two of the three are excellent offensive minds. Also, if you're an offensive coordinator or offensive coach, you want to go and you want to coach under Pete Carroll, because the defense is going to be super lights out, right? And Pete Carroll's getting a little bit up there in age. Maybe he wants to transition to the full GM role in the future or whatever. He's not going to be around forever. So if you're the offensive coordinator, you got that fast track in, if you do a good job, to be the head coach after Pete Carroll leaves. So these are three advantageous situations for the Raiders to go through, and these are, I believe, three excellent candidates for head coach. All right, guys, that's my time today. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Appreciate all you guys. Until next time, everybody, peace.